Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia. Hello.
I'm Mike Delisio.
And I'm Roy Kennedy.
Today we're taking a look at a board game from Z-Man called Cryo. This is a game that kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't know much about this several months ago. Then they announced it from Tom Jolly and Luke Laurie, who we all liked because they did Manhattan Project Energy Empire. And so this is, I'm just going to straight up tell you, it's not the same game at all. But we liked that game, so we were certainly interested in this one. It also has a, what would you say, like a 60s vibe to it, space-wise, maybe?
Retro.
Yeah.
Retro?
A little retro. It's not quite that, like, retro futuristic look that's like a 1950s, aesthetic. But there is something a little retro-y feeling about it, very like Crash on an Alien Planet vibe.
Yeah.
The game is actually, yes, you've crashed onto a planet. Everyone's crashed there. You have one big ship that's broken up into parts, and you're trying to get underground into caves as fast as you can because there's just going to be some devastation occurring, and everyone dies who's on the surface. So you want to get as many people below as you possibly can, or score points.
Why don't you just let me explain the game?
All right, fine.
Good call.
This is the surface of the planet, and the ship, upon crashing, has broken up into 4 sections, these 4 sections here. The sun is going to set soon, and when it does, the life pods still on the surface here are going to freeze. So this is the clock of the game, and what you are attempting to do is rescue these life pods in your color, and then send them down to these caverns so that they are safe. And you are going to be getting victory points from a few different things. So let's take a look at the scoreboard here, the pad, okay? So you're going to get 2 points for every one of your pods down in the caverns. You're going to get a point for each upgrade in each vehicle assigned to your player board, which I'll show you in 1 second. You're going to get 1 point for each pod still left on your platform or on your vehicles. You are going to get points for your mission cards. You can have up to 3 of those. And then you are also going to get cavern majority. So most gets 4 points here, second most gets 2 points. And then you've got yourself your total there. Whoever has the most points, of course, is going to be the winner of the game. So this is a player board, and this is going to keep track of your 3 drones here and your different resources. With this one down here, nanites being wild for the other 3. You've also got energy over here, and this is your platform where you can hold your pods. So on your turn, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to either deploy, which means you take one of your drones, you send it somewhere, and you take one of the adjacent actions. Some of these platforms where they land, by the way, are broken at the beginning of the game randomly, based on the number of players. Or the other action is you can recall all of your drones, put them back onto your player board, and trigger some special abilities there. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's take a look at what the different things do, okay? Many of them, so this one, and this one, have these little tokens, and if you deploy next to them, then you can take that token and do one of 2 things with it. You can take it, discard the token, such as this one here, and give yourself 2 of that resource, so 2 crystals. I would just track it on here like that. Or you can plug it in somewhere onto your board. So I might put it, let's say, here, okay? And that means when my drone here returns to that spot, I'm going to trigger that conversion rate. In this case, it's just get 2 crystals. But if I put it, say, here, that would mean when I return a drone to that spot, I pay 2 crystals, and I rescue 1 pod from anywhere in this case. So these are going to be conversions that you create so that when your drones return, you can trigger them and get different abilities. You've got energy, and you've got nanites over here, and this is a card action. The card action, either here or anywhere else on the planet, is going to allow you to either draw a card or play a card. So there's those. There's also these spots that show up at all of these locations, and that means you rescue some pods from that area for the green resource. The organic resource is what it's called. And so there's those. You've got this one here, lets you take a card action. This one over here lets you gain energy. You're going to need energy to send people down into the caverns. And you've also got this one over here that is going to allow you to reveal new caverns, because most of them, except the first 2, this one down here right below the large one, those 2 begin face up, the rest of them are face down. So you're going to take that action to reveal the face down ones, and deeper into the cavern takes more energy to deploy into. There's also this area down here where you can, using this action, assign crew pods you have to these salvage locations, and you're going to be earning resources when you recall your drones. And then you can take these pods back by taking that action there. So let's talk about the recalling. Okay, so let's say, again, I've already taken a few actions here. You can recall whenever you want to, as long as there is at least one out there. So I've already done that. I'm going to take a couple of tokens here and put them into my board, like so. And then I'm going to recall. By the way, every time you take one of these tokens, you reveal the next one, of course, so there's always something there face up. So if I'm recalling, I'm going to do three things, okay, in order. The first one is any salvage down here. So let's say I've got that there. I'm going to earn that. So I would gain 1 crystal for that first one. Secondly, I'm going to pick one of these locations that has a token on it, and I'm going to trigger that token. I might take this one, for example, and earn 1 nanite on my player board. If I do this one, sabotage, I'm going to destroy this section right here. And you would only want to do that, of course, if your pods were gone. Say I've already recalled this, and it's on my personal platform, but there's someone else's color there. If I chose to do that, I would put the token there, and these two would be destroyed. That earns you nothing, but it does pull other players back, so you may do that. So again, first, this one. Second, trigger one of those tokens. And then lastly, recall your drones and trigger these reactions. So for example, I might go here. I can spend either the crystal or the life one there and earn 1 energy, which I track over here on the side. Once that's done, we deploy a new token from the sunset track over here to that spot, and then it's the next player's turn. So the cards have a few pieces of information, and they can be used in one of several ways, alright? So you can always on your turn scrap a card and take the matching resources listed right there. That's not an action, you can just choose to do that. Throw this away and take that. You can also tuck the card into your player board, below the player board, covering this top, and it is now a vehicle with a specific capacity, and you can put your life pods in there and then deploy to the caverns, going to this location and spending some energy based on how deep you want to deploy your pods. You can also tuck the card at the top of your player board, and then you have a special ability. You can have up to 3 of these, just like you can have up to 3 vehicles at the same time, though the vehicles go away when you deploy them. And then lastly, you can choose to score a secret mission. You can have up to 3 of those. And these you put face down next to your player board, and it's going to give you some extra victory points at the end of the game. So again, they all have these different pieces of information so that you can decide how you want to use the card. A mission, a special ability, or simply as the vehicle, or perhaps just throw it away for that scrap ability, okay? For some extra resources, because you really need them. And that's basically it. The game's going to continue until all of these tokens are gone. Eventually, there's the large one that comes out. And whenever that one gets triggered, then the game is going to be over and you're going to score everything. And that is all there is to it. Components in the game, I think, are very well done. The plastic especially is wonderful. These life pods are very detailed. They feel very sturdy, well made, wonderful pieces to hold. The drones themselves are very cool. They might be a little confusing because of the way they're built to place onto something. The rotors here are basically offset from the feet, so you might try to put it like this onto your player board and that won't work, but it's not a big deal. They are wonderfully constructed. I really, really like these. Player boards are double layered, so that's great. It holds everything in place. I love the different cubes that are tracking your 4 resources. The cardboard pieces are fine. They work well. And then the cards are very good quality. Nice linen finish cards. Very thick. They shuffle very well. And they got some interesting artwork in there. Caverns look great. Everything in the game, I think, looks really good and is well constructed, and the symbology is very straightforward throughout. So I'm quite happy with the production here and the quality of the pieces.
I also like the component quality of this game. I really like those drones. I don't know, they're just really satisfying little pieces to move around and put. The only thing I wasn't a huge fan of was stacking those tokens. At least when I played, they fell over all the time. And I know that they fit inside the double-layer board, beautifully. I just kind of wish they were a little bit bigger so they stacked better. But that's the most minor of complaints. I was pretty happy with everything else.
I agree, Tom. No, I think that the components were good. And I do like the fact that those, like you said, they had some functionality. When you would place those tokens on your board, they slotted in and they helped you know that this is what's going to trigger a particular action. And that reminded me a little bit. I don't know if you guys have the same feeling. One of the co-designers of this, Luke Laurie, designed one of my favorite games, Dwellings of Eldervale. It had a similar feel where you could take tokens from a main area, put them onto your personal player board, and use that to figure out how to manipulate or mitigate, get resources. I kind of liked that little throwback. I can tell there was a little bit of design synergy there. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I definitely enjoyed the components as well. I mean, like Tom said, I really enjoyed the little drones that go around everywhere. And I just enjoy the style and art of the game as well. It gives me kind of like that vibe of like the space game, but like sort of like retro-ish as well. I really enjoyed that. And I thought the components were great overall.
The cubes, especially those little cubes that are trackers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I really like those.
I love the little nanite
like
cube with
cubes.
all the sparkles inside. It's really nice.
Yeah, they're neat.
So I was thinking when I was looking through the cards for the game, and a card can be used as a ship or as victory points or as a special ability, and I was thinking, ooh, I wonder how many different kinds there are. There's not that many. I want to say there's like 6, 7, 8 different cards. And I was like, well, that does a couple things. First of all, it makes it pretty easy to figure them out, remember them. You don't have to sit there and go, oh, there's 20 different cards. But secondly, it falls into a theme of this game, and that's that, to me at least, this game has a small feel to it. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing, but the game has only so many different cards. There's only so many different actions you're going to do on the board. There's only so many different kinds of caverns you're going to find. Now, you'll get different combinations of all that stuff happening. But this game, it felt like a much smaller game than this box shows you, and I felt like your decision-making was limited in that regard, which will affect, I think, some people will like that more and some people may not. If you want a game, this game feels like you have a ton of different options, but you really are kind of doing a few things and many of those things over and over.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Tom, with that word small. It does feel like a fairly small game. And I'll say that I think that feeling is compounded by playing at 2 players, which I also did. And I found the game not only small, but a little short. I didn't quite get the meal I was looking for at 2 players. It felt a little too short for me. Now, ultimately, you are still doing about the same number of actions. You're doing the same stuff. They block more spaces, all of that, so you're doing the same thing. You deploy and bring back about the same number of drones. But combining the feeling of, what kind of verges on lack of replayability, right? With a game only at 2 players, I don't know. I didn't like that feeling too much. I definitely, all that boils down to me saying I think I recommend it with more players. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, just to kind of go a little further on this idea of the game feeling smaller than it maybe looks on the table, you come across these cards and you think maybe, at least I thought when I first started playing, I was going to have a hard time figuring out how I'm going to play all these cards. And I think by the end of the game, I used 1 card as a vehicle. I had 2 special powers and maybe 1 end game scoring card. So it's again, you're not really utilizing all of the components you think you might. And so that was a little bit surprising to me. I don't know that I think it's necessarily a negative, but I definitely agree with you, Z, that I think it's going to inform the replayability of the game. I don't know that successive plays of the game are going to feel all that much different. I think that your strategies are limited, and so therefore, each game is going to play out relatively similar to the next. That's at least the way I feel after the couple games I've played for it.
Mm-hmm. I really, really enjoyed this game as far as like the way everything came together. I don't necessarily see like it being small as a bad thing or anything like that at all. I actually really enjoy this style of game, and I feel like there's a decent amount of depth in there as far as like it's really about playing the other players in a lot of places. Like which area is he going to go to, what things is he going to go to, which space is he going to go to, and trying to figure out how to beat your opponents to those things. And I think that's where the replayability comes in, is playing off the other players in the game space that's built there. I really enjoyed how all of that stuff came together.
I figured we could talk about maybe something that we like, and if there's something that you don't like about the game. So for me, something I really enjoyed about the game, I thought it did a really good job with player counts, or without, it doesn't matter how many player counts, at shutting down spaces. But I really liked how this game does that, because it doesn't close off any particular space. It just makes it so that fewer people can take some actions. I thought that was a neat concept at the beginning, that setup. Then that does help each game feel differently, because, hey, maybe you can only play so many cards as that. Mm-hmm. Something I was not a huge fan of, even though the concept of bringing your things back is cool, and, picking where they're going to go, and you get an action based on where they come back, I found that it's pretty obvious you're going to pick the one where when you bring it back, you get something. And then you'll pick the next best one. Then you'll pick the one that might let you turn something into a card or whatever. And the one that lets you turn one thing into another thing, that's okay, but it requires 2 actions to get it and set it up. And I just didn't find that as interesting. I was kind of hoping that would feel cooler than it did.
I might precisely reverse my 2 things, Tom, from yours. 'Cause my favorite thing is that you get to shore up your weaknesses with that blank slate in front of you. Yes, it's very simple, okay? But the idea of, I can tell because of the special ability I've slotted, or, whatever I'm going with, or the spaces that ended up being blocked, that I'm going to have a hard time getting crystal. So I'm going to make sure that I can make it elsewhere, i.e. on my personal board. I like that about it. I like that if you can spot the things you're going to be deficient at, you can then get good at that. The trick, I think, for a lot of people is you want to fill in those spots quickly. You don't know what you're weak at yet. That's, I think that might be a little bit of a trap. And then the other side of that, the thing I thought was a little bit weak is relates to that replay a bit, the card variability. Some cards, every game I played, I'll have a hand of cards. And I'll look at the special ability, or I'll look at the secret scoring. And there are some I like more than others. Just because I like them. They're not, I don't know if they're better, okay? I don't know the math. I just like them more. So I go with the ones I like more. Every time. Because I like them more. And there are 7 or 8 different ones. There are 2 or 3 I really like. So guess what? I'm going to take that one. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate that there isn't a, I don't know, that there isn't more variety, or that there isn't some way to, like, have maybe multiple decks and you use a different one. I don't know. I mean, maybe I do want the game to be a little bit bigger, so, I wish that there was a little more difference in that deck of cards. I really like that there is a deck of cards that makes the players different as you play, but it's so narrow, So, yeah, that's what I think.
It's funny, though, because I'm going to almost do what you did to Tom, and your negative is my positive. I really like those cards. Now, I do agree with you, though, that there are some that I like better than others, probably. But there were more times than not, I would say, where I wanted to use a particular card for all 3 of its things. I'm like, man, that's a really good endgame scoring, but I love the special power. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I need a vehicle. I love that kind of, agonizing decision where every card to me is like, I want to use it for all 3 things and I can't. that's probably my favorite part of the game. The part of the game that felt a little lacking to me, and I think this might be, hopefully it's not too specific, but it was specific to me, was that I felt like there's, a lot of action spots on the board, relatively speaking, but they were all similar to each other. It's like, okay, well, you're going to get this resource. You can go over there and get that resource. You can go over there and get that resource. The one action spot that felt significantly different than all the other ones was the one that I felt like I always wanted to go to. So like you, Z, where you had particular cards you always wanted to play, I always want to go to the scout action. To me, that felt like the strategy that made the most sense to me, and it allowed me to do things that other people couldn't do. But I don't know if is it overpowered? Probably not. I'm sure that, this has gone through a significant amount of design testing, but that was always a spot that felt best to me. And so I found myself wanting to just do that over and over again. And I would try to find cards that would synergize with that, and powers that would synergize with that, where I can look at the planets and other people couldn't look at the planets. And so, again, I don't know if that's a weakness, but to me, it felt like that spot was just better than the other ones. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
They're caverns, by the way, not planets.
Oh, yeah.
But I've also made that mistake every time.
Because they're round.
I didn't even think about that, but yes.
That's a really good point. It is caverns. I wanted to look at the caverns.
Yeah, I really enjoyed a lot of different aspects. I like the multi-cards. I like the fact that you can try to use some of your people in these different areas to try to gather you resources, but while they're sitting there, they're not going to be going down the cavern, so they could end up losing you points and things like that. I enjoyed like the tightness of like trying to build up your board so that way when you're taking actions and then taking actions back, you're getting the correct resources to be able to do the things you want to do. There is a bit of meanness in this game. If you think somebody's doing too good, you can definitely go ahead and like destroy a bunch of their people so that different areas could be wrecked out. You can also be like, I think Mike's winning. I'm going to area control his cavern section here and keep him off of the points, which I totally did in some instances in the game. So there is a decent amount of like interaction in between the players, which for me actually isn't a negative, but I could see other people out there, if they don't like when somebody jumps on a thing that they're trying to do, they could find that a little bit annoying. But for me, all around, I really liked a lot of this game.
All righty, well, let's find out what final opinions are on it. We'll start with you, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, overall, I do think it's a very well designed, and I'm glad you brought up the interactiveness, Roy, because that's a very good point. It's a very interactive game, and you should probably know that going in. I feel like the multi-use cards, the combination of the worker placement, the kind of place, and when you bring them back, you trigger something that's satisfying. The area control for me was maybe not as satisfying as it could have been. It felt a little disconnected. But overall, I do feel like it's a very solid game. I'm going to be giving this a 7 out of 10.
What about you, Roy?
For me, this reminded me of one of my favorite like worker placement, dice placement games, Alien Frontiers. I know this game's very different, but it has that whole like setting up your stuff, getting your pieces, and instead of putting colonies out on a planet, you're actually putting different people down in caverns to control the different areas of the caverns. I really enjoyed this game. This is going to get an 8.5 for me. I just like how well this game, it feels very streamlined. Like it feels like, I know you guys were saying the game feels small, but just feels like it's tight. Like this game's extremely tight, the way it works. And this is a game that I'll enjoy playing over and over again. And this is a game that I'd love to bring out with people at conventions, teach them how to play and play back and forth, building up the little engines of resources and getting those people into the caverns before the sun goes down.
All right. Z, going to beat an 8.5?
I'm not. I agree that the game feels tight. I like the way that it seems very well balanced, engaging. I do find every turn I am engaged in this game. I really do. My main concern is really more of a long-term investment, the replayability. That most of my complaints with this game might go away if there was more content or if they come out with an expansion. You might see me change my tune. So again, at 2 players, I thought it was a little less interesting than I would have liked. And yes, you start seeing all the same stuff. I start picking favorites, and so it ends up feeling kind of like the same game. I'm going for the same secret mission because I like those. I'm claiming the same special abilities because I like those. So, and the caverns are fairly distinct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm actually giving it the same score Mike did, a 7. It's good. I like it. I've enjoyed my plays. I'm just not going to keep bringing it back.
Yeah, so this is what kind of where I'm struggling on this too. I'm, the more I think about it, I think I have to say 6.5 for me. Ooh. It's just shy of where I want it to be. I felt like there's a little bit of luck that it irritated me a few times. Like if I go to a cavern and that's an amazing cavern and someone else can't get there necessarily fast enough, but that's minor. To me, it's the same thing Z said. I feel like the next time I play this, you give me some cards, I'm picking that special ability. I'm picking that way to score. Those are the things I like. They're the ways I want to play. And there's not a lot of nuance there that's going to keep me coming back to it over and over again. It's fine. It's very enjoyable. And in today's gaming society where people only play games a few times, maybe that's fine. But if you said you want to play this 10 plus times, I don't know that I would recommend it for that. I'm worried you would run out after 5 games. But then again, it is easy to get into. The streamlining is there. So I could rate it a 7 tomorrow. It's there's nothing bad about the game. I'm just worried like Z about that replayability. So, well, there you go. That's Cryo. If anything, a fantastic production. Yes. Definitely doesn't feel like a lot of other stuff on the market either. It feels like a unique style game. So, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
And I'm Roy Kennedy.
Have fun running for your lives.